Welcome back to Mathematics That Moves Us, the podcast where we explore how mathematics learning, teaching, and community intersect to create powerful learning experiences for children. I'm your host, Dr. Kristopher J. Child.
And I am Dr. Lateefah Id-Deen. And in this episode, we're talking about something every educator wrestles with. And that's, what do you do to take what you learned from a PL and actually implement it into your classroom? So today, we know that sometimes PL inspires you, but we want to talk about the ways of which it actually translates into the daily practice. And today, we're going to talk to an educator who's doing just that.
Our guest today is Austin McClung. He's here to share not just the big takeaways from our recent professional learning, but also how he's bringing them to life with the students and colleagues he is with right now. Let's start off with the big picture. Thinking back to the professional learning you engaged in this summer, what was your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway was honestly just knowing that there's other people doing the same thing and struggling with some of the same stuff. This was one of my first experiences to really be in a large setting group with specific math teachers who really are just struggling with that same thing that we see every day. And so see a lot of the tools that we're implementing at my school being used on a broader scale in other places really made me feel better about the strides we're making in our local community to really help these kids with their math learning.
So, okay, the school year is underway. This was this past summer. How have you started implementing what you've learned into practice?
Well, day one, it was I moved tables and chairs and we rearranged the classroom, right? We're working on, I try to create more board space so that I can get kids up and out, up and moving in the classroom, collaborating in small groups, really trying to create that space where that learning can take place for the students, right? Where I don't have to stand up there and do all the teaching and all the talking all the time, right? We really tried to get this learning space cultured and created for the kids. And so that was my first thing. I went in the week before school. I took my son with me and I said, we're moving tables, we're moving chairs, we're moving my desk, right? And so that was one of my biggest things, like physical things that I did, was really trying to, and it changed. I mean, the first day they walked in, they looked at me like, oh, geez, what is going on here? But then I started incorporating that group work and they started seeing the benefit and they started seeing, okay, well, this is why he did this. And this is why we're doing that. And honestly, that first week was awesome. I was expecting a lot of pushback. I was expecting a lot of just confusion, but with some of the activities that we had come up with and some of the things that we were able to incorporate into the day, I mean, it was seamless and it was a lot of fun for the kids, actually. And so the year started off with smiles and happy, and rather than those frowns and groans that we usually get.
And that's key that you set the tone for the year. But I love the fact how you talk about the space that you created. Old school methodology and mentality is, hey, roles, columns in the classroom with how they're sitting. We're developing that factory mindset. You don't work together, you work individually. But what you're doing is not just teaching them math, you're really teaching them a life skill of, hey, you got to collaborate, you got to work together, you got to have conversations. But most importantly, you created an environment that was conducive to that happening and for children to be able to relax in a mathematics environment as opposed to come in tense, worrying about an individualistic space.
No, absolutely. And I think, again, when we start getting these negative connotations of math away from what these kids have experienced, and we start showing them other ways that it can be done, we really allow that learning to start happening, because they're not just in a space by themselves. They're not just secluded. We're not giving them 50 problems a night and saying, go home, good luck, see what happens. It's no, we're a group, we're a culture. We can get this together. We can use each other as resources rather than competing and rather than trying to be better, right? It's everyone in this together. You're in the same spot, so use it. And that's really what I try to tell my kids. Like, it doesn't matter that we don't like it. We don't like it together. We can do these things and find common ground with people you don't normally work with, and that's where those ideas really start to happen. And so some of those group projects, those small groups where kids, sitting from over here and over here work together, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, you got that? And then it's, oh, okay. And then you start hearing that math talk. And that's really when we start seeing the learning really sink in.
Wait, so you're telling me you don't give them 50 problems a night to practice to prepare for the real world? Because I know in the real world, as an adult, I do 50 problems of something every single day. or I may not do 50. I may do the odds or just do the evens.
Right. Yeah. And if as long as the answers are in the back of the book, we're fine. No problems there,
Right.
I mean, so many kids, I mean, myself included, I mean, I was good at math and I still went home. I'm going, why am I doing this? What is the benefit to any of this? And so as the math teacher now, I'm like, no, I don't need to do that. We don't need to have that learning. And how many of these kids can go home and actually get help with any of this? That's not AI, or that's not just this chat GPT that we're fighting now. It's like, what's the point of having them do work that's probably not even theirs? Right. We set the learning space. We use the tools that we have, and we really try to get them to do what they can while we have them. It's not on parents as mom and dad to teach them math. That's what our job was, so why would I send them home to do that? That doesn't work for anybody. And I tell my kids that all the time, like, I outgrew my parents in 5th grade when it came to math, but it didn't stop me from succeeding in it. One of my favorite things of the first week is I show the Joe Bowler inspirational videos, and it's, hey, math isn't hereditary. You're not predisposed to being good or bad. It's just what you put into it is what you get out. And I work in an art school, so I tell these kids all the time, you didn't wake up and draw the Mona Lisa. You didn't wake up and understand how to dance, right? You woke up and said, I wanted to get better at it, and you practiced and you gained a talent. And math is no different from any of those. And so we really try to connect it with what they're experiencing outside the classroom that relates to their life.
And you spoke earlier about some of those shifts that happen and how it's making these connections and math is becoming practical. They're talking. Have you seen shifts in how your colleagues view mathematics? And because they're seeing you and I know they're hearing about the excitement. Have you been seeing any shifts in how they are approaching their environments?
Well, absolutely. Because so my school is very, very small. There's only 360 kids in 6th through 12th grade. So, I mean, it's a really small community.
Right.
And so the one other math teacher the other high school math teacher who joined me at the PL, we've really worked together to try to create this cohesiveness. And from that, we've tried to talk to our colleagues about some of the ways that it works, but also to try to start spreading a more positive vibe about it. Right. I remember when I first started teaching at the school, we had teachers who really would just straight up tell kids, oh, don't worry, math. I didn't do math. I didn't do that. I'm like, could you stop cutting me off at the knees here and, just lie to them, I guess. Like, don't tell them how useless it was. Don't sit there and say you don't need it. Like, I know you're trying to be nice and you're trying to reassure them that they're okay and you're trying to help them, but you're kind of cutting us off because they're shutting down before they ever even get to us. We don't have a chance. And so I've had that conversation with my colleagues, like, hey, look, it's cool. Just say you're not good at it and that's fine, but you're not going to stop working at it. It's not something you can just give up on, right? Send them to me and we'll figure it out. But please stop telling them that it's not needed, or it's, I wasn't good at it, or I can't do it. Right. So let's get rid of those really negative things that surround these kids.
Yeah, so that really gets at one of the challenges, right? As you said, kind of as we think about not only teaching, but also thinking about how to really implement some of those things. So that's definitely one of them. Can you think of maybe another challenge that you ran into when you were trying to implement some of the learning that took place, and more importantly, how you're navigating that?
One of the things that I really didn't see that I was going to have an issue with was different size classes. What you can do in one class of 22 kids, you can't necessarily do in a class of 9. The collaboration lacked a little bit. So I've had to have ways to facilitate that sharing in a smaller group setting. And because of it, because you only have so many kids, obviously you just don't have the wealth of ideas that you would in a larger class. But some of the things that we do, I may not do in a group setting in that class, more of a group discussion. So it's rather than being 3 kids in a group, maybe we do just talk as all 9 of us or 8 of us, however many are there that day. And we try to make it a bigger group discussion, but still trying to facilitate those talkings between kids where I just kind of get to sit back and let them have the ideas. And then build that into the smaller groups, kind of, give them better, I guess, more of a foundation to start and let them kind of go from there. Whereas with the bigger groups, I can kind of let them just breathe a little bit and they usually get where I want them to go. But But some of the things that I've really tried to work on with that is one of the ideas that we took from the PL, which was this idea of shortening the thinking time on purpose, like coming up short on purpose. Like typically it was, am I giving them enough time? Am I giving them enough time to really think about it? But one of the things they talked about is if you cut it off short, then they want to think about it. Then they are engaged and they're really ambitious. And so with that smaller group, it's one of the things that I can do is let them brew for an idea, maybe for a day, and then bring them back the next time. And we can have that conversation again. So giving them different ways to think about it has really been beneficial, I think.
And I love that, giving them different ways to think about it, because at the end of the day, that's all they need. That's all, literally that simple. Is just a different way to think about what we're doing in mathematics. And it makes me think about the different way of thinking that went into that professional learning series over the summer. I had the privilege of being a part of some of the planning sessions for it, and I saw how Dr. Cole and others really thought through, how do we think differently about planning a professional learning? We want our classrooms to be different, so we can't plan professional learning like we've always planned it. And I want to hear from you. What ideas or hopes do you have for keeping this kind of learning alive through ongoing professional learning or shared opportunities? What are some ideas?
Well, I think the like I said, the biggest thing I loved was the opportunity to collaborate on a broader scale. So many times our PDs and our PLs, they're local. They're very, small groups, and they're people who live and work in the same areas and all that stuff, right? This was the first time. I mean, we were, I traveled an hour and a half to get to that place. So, it was knowing that all these people were getting such a regional look. One of the schools was a international school that I had an opportunity to talk with. And they face some of the same challenges that we face in a broad community. Like, your kids don't all come from the same spot. They have very different backgrounds. And so being able to talk to somebody like that, and get ideas and say, oh, wow, that's what you guys have to do. Right. I'm seeing some of the same stuff. It was really a great experience. And I would love for every teacher to have that, because the more we reaffirm each other, the better off we can do as a cohesive unit. Because it doesn't matter what school you teach at. A teacher's a teacher, and we all should have each other, each other's back. We should all be fighting in the same way and going in the same direction, because at the end of the day, we're all supposed to be here for the same reason, and that's kids and education. Right. And so with that in mind, any type of collaboration I can get on this broader scale is just so valuable. It really was. And I mean, even like Dr. Cole that's a person from another state giving us an opportunity to see what they're doing. And then, we had why can't I think of her other presenter's name now, but she was from Stanford. She was doing all these other things. Like, it was just such a great way to see all these different views still going in the same direction. And so I was really, really felt good about how we were doing it after that week. And that was, I think the other teacher, Chelsea, and I, we talked about that at length for the last month, is just how great it was to have that, and to have that, like, that feeling of, okay, we're doing a good job and we're doing it right. And we're ahead of the game where we maybe weren't sure before, and so that was awesome part.
I love how you say a teacher is a teacher. I use it oftentimes the other end of it. A child is a child. Like, we should be able to drop a child in any environment, no matter where, and know they're going to get what they need. But you, Austin, are demonstrating what we need more teachers to do, to buy into it, build into it, work together, because ultimately us working together, we can change the game. And most importantly, we can change the game not only for ourselves, not only for the profession, but for children. That's what it's all about. How are we getting these light bulb moments for these children who one day are going to replace us in the field, which is a good thing, but are we doing what we got to do to prepare them?
I love it. You said the light bulb moment, because that's one of those just joys as a teacher especially in math. I mean, I know kids have it in other subjects, but when you see a kid who struggled and you're like, all of a sudden those eyes go wide and they went, wait a second, that's what I'm supposed to do. And you're like, you got it. You succeeded. You persevered. You fought through it. You did everything you needed to do. and you got the result. And it's just one of those great moments you have.
Yeah, I love though to hear you talk about it. Like I'm seeing joy in you just talking about what you're doing in the classroom and really what you learned from the PL. So just kudos to you for really making sure you're constantly learning, attending professional learning opportunities where you can continue to grow and continue to really kind of foster that joy, because you're seeing it as I'm hearing you talk about it. Sometimes you don't always really get that excitement and joy as you talk about your PD or your professional learning. So I love that you taking this on and you're really implementing in ways that are really, really, really beautiful.
Oh yeah, I know we never stop. I mean, that we can't always. The kids are always changing, so we got to always adapt with them too. And so, I go to another one next Tuesday with all of my math crew again, and we'll be continuing to move on. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I love that. So thank you so much again for sharing your story, for giving us to look into what it was to really attend this professional learning. Because as we know, we all have a powerful story, and just thank you so much for sharing your story here.
Any final thoughts you want to leave our listeners with, Austin?
I mean, for all the teachers that are out there looking at stuff, guys, just keep being passionate about what you're doing. The kids pick up on that. And again, it's not always about the math. It's not always about some numbers on the screen or nothing like that. It's about the kids. So remember that the passion you bring carries into what they're doing. And if you're passionate about teaching, they'll be passionate about learning.
I love that.
I love it. For our listeners, I hope you're walking away thinking about your own journey. What's one thing you've already put into action this school year because of what you've learned? And how are you keeping it alive? This has been episode 3 of the Mathematics That Moves Us podcast with myself, Dr. Kristopher J. Childs.
And me, Dr. Lateefah Id-Deen. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a colleague in order to keep the conversation going. And until next time, keep leading, learning, and keeping mathematics forward.